So initially she was like, this is gross, you're going to die. That was sort of the thought, for the first little bit, but she couldn't be more supportive. She's even like started to research recipes that she can put together that don't gross her out so much. She's totally in on me kind of, given we got an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old, and they're obsessed with bacon and steak. So she doesn't, she's one of those people that she's totally good with me, letting them eat off the plate. And she's been really, really good about it. She hasn't gone all the way around yet, even though I poke at her to try this. This is a ribeye.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday morning. We've got Mr. Ryan here today. Ryan, I see Ryan Howard looks like. Ryan, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time out to share your story with us. Where are you located?
Just outside of Boston, actually.
Outside of Boston. Okay, very good. I'm on the polar opposite side of the country. I'm just outside of Seattle. So, well, welcome. Hopefully things are well for you. They'd go in there. Well, if you don't mind, just give us a little bit of your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 37, father of, I've got 3 little girls, married, pretty typical, upbringing. I was raised in the Midwest. I call it, we were more on a, Swiss Miss type of, growing up where that stuff was fairly new. But I was an athlete growing up, so never had any, sort of weight problems or anything, like that, really up through adulthood. Played rugby through college, was always very active, got out of college, moved to Boston, stayed, same thing. The one thing that I never really paid attention to, though, outside of output, what was necessarily going in. So, like I think probably a lot of folks my age started, doing everything low-fat diet, whatever had low-fat diet, then low-carb, organic, whatever was on the cover, I get after. So convinced myself, stomach issues that, I have dairy, intolerance, or I've got this, or I've got that, and kind of self-diagnosing. So, did the whole almond milk thing and all that. And it was funny. I noticed that every year that I was, getting older, I'd put on 10 pounds throughout the year. Kind of no matter what, again, my output was. I worked really hard. If I didn't, it was 10. So I joke, I met my wife, I was probably 220. December of 2019, I was 290. So I was, just incrementally putting this weight on. I had developed a case of Blepharitis in my right eye, which if no one's ever heard of it, it's basically, oil glands kind of clogged up and they have nowhere to go. So it creates a sty pretty regularly. And the ophthalmologist was very, very nice, because it usually doesn't happen in folks your age, said it's chronic. And the word chronic, I was like, well, that stinks. That's not a fun way to go through. So I started kind of thinking, what else can I do? And I decided in 19 to get into shape. So October of 19, it was veggies and no sweets, like cut out coffee, like everything I could think of that was an extra, I cut out. And I started doing 45 minutes a day on the treadmill. And I lost like 4 pounds. And I was pretty miserable. So it was about then that I actually came across your I think Twitter at the time, and then Instagram, and then I found you on the Rogan podcast. Truth be told, the initial thought was, that's not gonna work. that's crazy stuff. But you guys did that World Carnivore Month, January. I said I'll do 30 days, and I think I lost 28 pounds in 30 days. And I said, whoa, it was shocking. That's sort of the origin up until that's when I kind of made that switch.
Yeah, that's as you might not be shocked to hear. I've heard that story, I don't know, thousands of times now.
Sure.
And the same thing, and everybody thinks it's crazy. It sounds nuts. Why would it, and in fact, when I started doing this stuff, I thought it was nuts too. But, it is what it is. It turns out it's helped just an enormous amount of people, which is great to see. So this chronic blepharitis, was there some sort of autoimmune issue that was going on here or something like that? Or what was the story with this?
And nothing that I ever had, nothing that was ever diagnosed. My dad had gotten styes before, so it wasn't something I was totally unfamiliar with, but I was never diagnosed with anything. And I really could count on one hand how many times I'd had them in my life. But what really freaked me out was I got one and it turned into a chalazion, which moved up into my eyelid, and then it, I guess, kind of gross, but it hardens and it stays there. And they're like, well, we can inject it, and I'll needle the eye, or we can cut it out. And I was like, all right, well, I guess do that. And so they cut it out, and now I have a permanent scar. And I tend to suffer from this keloid scarring, so I get a little puffy around where I scar tissue. And so forever now, I've got a little eyelid that will go a little lower than the other one. I had realized almost immediately after that they'd cut it out that was probably the wrong move. But not 2 weeks later, I had another sty. And so I was terrified that I was just going to have these over and over and over and over again for the rest of my life.
And so you said 2019, you lost 28 pounds in 1 month. You were I don't know, where were you at when you started? You said you're up to 290. Where were you at then? Where are you at now?
So I was 292, January 1st of 2020. And today I'm 241. I got all the way down to, I actually did a charity fight that you may want to, may hit on in a bit, but I got down to 228 for fight night. Mm-hmm. And that was all within 2020 there.
So I'm just trying to figure out, because you said rugby. I played a lot of rugby when I was younger too. I was wondering, what position were you playing then? Because you sound like you're a relatively big fella, I guess.
Second row. Yeah, I'm a lock.
Okay, yeah, I did the same thing. I had number 8 lock was where I kind of got placed most of the time. So 240, and that's about where I'm at. I'm 6'5", 245 right now, something like that. So it's a pretty good place to be, as far as I'm concerned. How did you, when you decided you're going to do this diet, how did that go? Was there some sort of difficulty? Has it evolved any? What were you eating? How did that work?
Yeah, so my wife's a vegetarian, so there was some conversation there.
Is she still a vegetarian?
She's I guess pescatarian is an easier way to say it. So she'll eat fish because we live in New England, so she doesn't have much choice.
Right.
She is. I tell you what. When I got into it, I saw results, I really got into it. So initially, it was bacon and eggs in the morning, steak in the afternoon, and just like clockwork. And truth be told, when I started doing it, I took Fridays off. I said, Fridays, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And I did. And I still had that result. The only unfortunate part of that is you kind of reset your digestive tract, going into every weekend. But it was, that was what I did for a month. And then my plan was to go back to a more well-rounded, I guess is the phrase that I see diet. And it, I tell you what, my energy level sunk so much when I stopped having a pound of steak or 2 pounds of steak a day. I didn't notice it when I dumped bacon for a little bit, but when I dumped red meat, I noticed that my energy level dropped. So now I'm probably 95% carnivore. I'll do the occasional, carb. I'll throw some nuts in every now and then, or dates or something, just to kind of sweeten the palate a little bit. But it's funny, before this, I had my wife asked me if I was going to eat before, and pound of bacon and 6 eggs. So
good for you. And what about the eye? Because this, you said you had this chronic, eye condition, Blepharitis, and it come and go. Is it gone now? Or or has it been long enough to even tell? Initially,
like the first 6 months, it was still probably once every 6 weeks. I'd feel it, and I can feel it when it was coming on. Like I'd start to get a little sore on my eyelid, and I was like, so I, do a corn bag or a compress or what have you, and it would usually go away. I didn't have any what you would call like classic or like a full on sty or issue. A lot of people are like, other issues that this is sort of fixed. I just stopped noticing it. And then it was funny when I was putting some information down for this conversation. I was like, oh yeah, I used to have a chronic condition in my eye that I haven't thought about this entire year. And so that was, I guess we could throw that in there too, because I haven't noticed it. I haven't had any flare-ups. I still have it's still a little bit different than my left eye, but I think again, that's the scar from the surgery there. But everything else, I haven't had an issue, and haven't used their medical stuff. Like they wanted to put me on 20 milligrams of doxycycline every day for spans of 60 days to clear it out. And I don't know if anyone's ever been on that medication, but that thing rips your stomach to pieces. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be on antibiotics, half the year.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And definitely they have an impact on many of them do have impacts on our gut. Obviously your wife being vegetarian had to have sort of said, what the hell are you doing? I mean, was she pretty like, this is weird type of thing? Or how did that interaction go?
It's funny. So initially she was like, this is gross. You're going to die. That was sort of the thought, for the first little bit, but couldn't be more supportive. She deals with all my dirty, plates and pans and stuff like that when I don't do it. But she couldn't be more supportive. She's even like started to research recipes that she can put together that don't gross her out so much. So like a meatloaf type thing that she'll make. And she's totally in on me kind of, given we got an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old and they're obsessed with bacon and steak. So she doesn't, she's one of those people that she's totally good with me, letting them eat off the plate. And she's been really, really good about it. She hasn't gone all the way around yet, even though I poke at her to try this. This is a ribeye.
give her. It took my. It's kind of funny. My significant other also was vegetarian. This is 10 years ago. Now she's 95% carnivore. It's kind of funny how she evolved. But it took me like 5 years before she would eat red meat, and now she can't get enough. Now she can't get enough of steak, and it's every night I'm cooking steaks for everybody. So it works out pretty well. Eventually they cave. They can't stand the They see how happy you're doing. Let me ask. So you like I said, you're a pretty big guy. You came down from 292. How much food were you eating at that time when you were losing weight? Were you eating a couple pounds a day, or what was the amount of food you were eating to lose weight?
So I'd say it'd be tough to scale it because I ate until I was full. Mm-hmm. Like I ate until I was stuffed. Like I had never done that. Dieting especially, I'd never done that. I was always, okay, that's enough. So the ribeyes were probably pound and a half. I do a pound of bacon. I do half a dozen eggs. People would laugh because I'd go through, they say, well, 2 eggs a day is the move. How many do you have? I was like, I go through about 60 a week, mm-hmm. And just as much as I want. So, snacking, I'd find jerky or something like that to kind of get into. But yeah, so at least 2.5 or more pounds of meat a day. And then again, as many eggs as I can fit in.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. Yeah, so it's probably easily 3,000 calories. So I'm just kind of rough putting that out there, which most people, that's good. Because you're eating to your satisfaction. And, this is one of the things where people are often, they're shocked that they can be full and still lose weight in many cases. Now, not everybody. I can eat more than that very easily. Sometimes I do when I want to gain weight. So weight loss, the chronic eye issue, any other issues, any other things you notice, like changes in your mental health, your digestion, skin, anything else that improved for you that you've noticed over the years?
Yeah. So I always tell people, I've gotten 3 or 4 people, including my sister, onto this now. And I said, the first thing you'll notice is about 4 or 5 days in, you'll get a pop. You'll get that energy pop. I said, and all of a sudden you go from kind of doing this all day, which is what I was doing, the 5-hour energy, 2 p.m. crash, thing, to being here all the time. And truthfully would go to bed because I go, bedtime, not because I was exhausted from the day. That certainly, would happen, especially when I was training, that would happen, but it was more that. Digestion was funny because I'd had a colonoscopy in 19 and nothing of issue, but they did find some things. And I had just sort of, again, I said, I thought I was lactose intolerant. I thought I had this. I thought I had, irritable bowel or whatever. I was Googling like crazy. Gone. Very normal. I again, a little bit more information, but I told my sister the same thing. I was like, it's almost like you get a little vacation from the bathroom. Mm-hmm. I said, it's kind of nuts that you feel like you just have a little vacation from kind of always being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I've seen so many people their digestive health just dramatically improves. Now, you mentioned lactose intolerant. Are you able to consume dairy products now, or is it part of your diet?
Absolutely. Yeah, milk, cream, cheese. I'll do with some eggs. I don't go crazy with it just because I don't crave it as much, and I kind of know when I want something like that. But over the summer, New England kids want ice cream. All right, so I was like, I think I can make this. I Googled it, raw egg yolks, some cream, a little bit of vanilla, but some honey, and got it. Pretty good ice cream.
Yeah. So and this is an interesting thing that I have seen a number of people with quote unquote lactose intolerance or even like shellfish allergies, and they for some reason goes away after they do carnivore for a period of time, which I thought's really peculiar or interesting. And so it may show that the gut is more complicated than we think it is. So, I mean, obviously what about work? I mean, if people notice you dropping 60, 50 pounds, have they noticed that?
So it was funny. I trained for that fight, and from the beginning of the fight, for people who were in the gym to fight night, I had people complimenting me then, just saying, geez, leaned out like crazy. Now, obviously, I was putting out a lot of effort, but yeah, I mean, my parents and my family all still live in Ohio, and I had them out here last 4th of July, and they hadn't seen me, physically. They FaceTime, what have you. What'd you do? Like, you look like I guess it's a compliment, but at the time it was probably a side-eye compliment. Somebody asked me if I was sick because they thought I had something chronic, illness because I had dropped so much weight.
That's kind of funny. If you look, if you become normal weight, people wonder what the hell's wrong with you. What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you normal weight? Why aren't you fat like everybody else? It's kind of funny. So tell me about the fight. I mean, MMA, boxing, what was the fight deal?
Yeah, so charity boxing, they call it a white collar brawler up here in New England. They do it every fall and every spring. Spring is all women, and fall is generally all men. And they do it in a few cities. It's called Haymakers for Hope. I'm kind of very casually I've worked out in boxing gyms, but I've never done anything this legit. And so I signed up for it. Got chosen. We picked a really nice charity called Cops for Kids with Cancer. It gives a donation of $5,000 to every family of a child who's been diagnosed with cancer in the New England area. And I dedicated the fight to my grandfather, who died of colon cancer, and a little boy from the next town over named Danny, who had a rare blood cancer. He was on the news pretty regularly. Jason Momoa got involved, and it was really cool. He passed shortly before the fight. I went into it and I said, you know what, I'm going to train carnivore. And I talked to my trainer. He goes, don't do that. He said, eat carbs. Like, you're going to put out a lot of energy, eat carbs. They were seeing, that the output was still pretty good. So, after that sort of initial conversation, he said, go nuts, do what makes you feel good, what makes you feel strong. And so I trained. I was training 5 days a week. I was doing an hour of kind of boxing fitness. I was sparring. I was doing running, lifting, all this stuff. So I was probably doing 2 or 3 hours of training a day to get ready for this thing. Dropped all that weight. And again, everyone I'd sort of spoken to had suggested I need carbs for the training aspect. And I don't know if anyone's ever boxed before, moved around a boxing ring, but 2 minutes feels like about an hour. And so we did 2 3-minute rounds. I ended up winning by decision, and put a licking on him. So it was fun. He was a good guy too. Again, raised a lot of money for charity.
Well, good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, I can. And that's the thing I do. I was in jiu-jitsu last night, and I don't. Like I said, I mean, yesterday I literally ate a tomahawk ribeye, and I think I had 8 eggs. That was my food. That was all I ate for the day, and no problem going. We did 5 6-minute rounds of wrestling, which is tiring. It can be, and I had no problem with that. So, and I do that several times a week. So it's not surprising at all that I've seen a lot of people, you need glucose, you don't need carbs, and you make your own glucose in many cases, particularly if you eat enough protein to do that. How about, I don't know, do you go to the physician on a regular basis? Are they worried about your cholesterol? Has your cholesterol been elevated? Has that been a concern for you?
It's up, but it's not up. So they're cautiously supportive is the phrase I'd use of the diet, because they don't love it, because it's missing fiber and, all the other things that they believe that we need. But the results there, they, check it. They said it's high, but it's not too high. It's not, something crazy. I asked them to look at, my HDL and my triglycerides, because I've, said falling down the rabbit hole of looking at everything. Asked for my A1C and all these other, metrics. I said, look, if you're looking at something that's probably, 95% or 99% of the population, these are probably the metrics you want to be in. I said, and I'm not saying I'm a 1% from any other thing other than my diet, is a 1%, probably diet, hopefully more. And if you're looking at it those metrics will change. Just because my LDL cholesterol is higher, if my other numbers are in sync with that, then I'm exactly where I want to be. And that's the the part that I kind of push back on. And they, either reluctantly or encouragingly agree with what with what my take is on. They know that I kind of have my pulse on my health a little bit better than probably the average Joe.
Well, I mean, coming down from 290 pounds and losing 50 pounds clearly has improved your overall cardiovascular risk. I mean, I think that's I think most people would agree with that. I mean, I think that's pretty. And then assuming your HDL and triglyceride were favorable, you've got a number of different factors that are beneficial. And so often when I see people in this situation, I say, well, you make your decision based on the information you have, and you have to make decisions right for you. And then if you're still concerned, serial imaging over time would also sort of show you where things fall, where the balance is. If you're not, like I said, if you're not accumulating disease, then it's probably not an issue, or most likely not an issue, particularly if you continue to assess it over time. Are you sort of heavily favoring towards more fat? Are you kind of more protein centric, or or do you care? Just eat whatever tastes good?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was sort of, when I started carnivore, I had heard the grass-fed sort of alternative to it. And I listened to you kind of intently and use an MMA analogy about, grass-fed maybe 1, but, grain-fed, what have you, is number 6, as far as fighters in the world. Like it's very, very, very close. But I did notice personally that when I switched primarily to grass-fed beef, which tends to be a little bit leaner, but ribeyes, right? So I'm still picking a fatty cut of meat. I taste the difference, right? And I'll get a grain-fed or more grocery store type meat now. And I had one last night, and it tasted a little bit different. It wasn't quite as satisfying as a Piedmontese or one of these other ones that I grabbed. Mm-hmm. It's still good, believe me. It's beats the hell out of a slice of pizza, but I did notice that when I switched to grass-fed, which tends to be a little bit leaner, I noticed that I was more satiated out of it.
Yeah, fair enough. It's interesting. Different people have different tastes, and yeah, they definitely taste different. I've got a variety of both in my freezer. I get some grass finished, some grain. In fact, I have a grass finished skirt steak that I'm going to be having in a couple hours, and so it varies. And yes, you definitely can taste a difference. Some people find that difference good or bad, depending on what your perspective is.
I was not a fan in the beginning. When I tried my first grass fed, I was like, this chewy thing is supposed to be like the bee's knees of steak. Yeah. And I didn't like it. So I experimented with some different farms. And like I said, that Piedmontese was the last one I had. And that was pretty good.
Yeah. Those guys, Shane and Joe, they run they have a nice operation out there out of Lincoln, Nebraska. And I've had theirs many, many times. And if you're looking for a leaner cut of beef, the Piedmontese breed specifically is a superior breed in my mind. And the grass finishing almost has no difference in flavor from grain finished because there's relatively little fat on the animal, and despite that, it's very tender. So plug for Piedmontese if you guys are listening. Yeah. They're a good company. And they're good people too. And I like to support any of those ranchers out there. Have you had any pushback from, are you on social media at all? I don't know how much. I know you said you're on Twitter a little bit.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram as the Big How. Did a lot of fundraising through that stuff. I've gotten, like I said, the follows went from you and probably Dr. Saladino to 10 million, because there's all sorts of different views out there. Mark Sisson and Mark Bell and just a bunch of information out there. And I find myself getting into a handful more Twitter spats than I had in the past of, folks saying, something that I just inherently know is incorrect. And I know, unfortunately, it's coming probably from a place of ignorance where they've just never tried it, to go, give it a go. Give it 2 weeks. Give it 2 meals, right? 2 meals. I swear, if you wake up in the morning and you have a pound of like jowl bacon, which if you've never had jowl bacon, amazing. Scrambled eggs, and then you have a steak for dinner, you're not going to have a bad day, and you're not going to be hungry.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I think that's, I think it generally puts you in a better place nutritionally and mentally in many cases. You feel good. You feel, there's a sort of a nice feeling when you've had that sort of good nutrition. You're not kind of anxious and looking around all the time. How hard is it in Boston to do carnivore type stuff? I know there's some good butchers. I know there's one Alpine Butcher, which often I get some meat from those guys, or they've got some high end stuff, which again, this tends to be more of the, I think, grain finished products, and they're very well marbled. They do a lot of the, high end Wagyus and stuff like that. But is Boston difficult to do carnivore? You do a lot of seafood in your diet?
Yeah. So I was just going to say, it's actually, I think, easier out here because I've found a couple of farms that ship right to me. There's Seven Sons in Indiana. They ship right to my house, Piedmontese, like you said. I've got those guys on sort of subscription, but then I also get the benefit of, we have friends that have lobster boats and fishing boats and tuna boats, so I can go over there with a fistful of cash and go get a lobster that was caught a half hour ago, or a tuna steak, that was caught in the last day. So adding that sort of stuff, and then that is good. The wife gets pumped up about that too, because that's her part of her meat, but having that sort of stuff, I think, makes it even easier because, at the end of the day, I think meat is meat. There's, I'm sure, some sort of minuscule argument about what effect shrimp has versus something else. But, at the end of the day, it appears to all be meat to me, and my body seems to react to it as meat. Yeah.
I mean, there's minor differences, but yeah, I think that's generally, that sentiment's pretty accurate for what I've seen from most people. There's exceptions, and there's people that, they react to pork or they react to seafood in certain ways. But certainly I think just getting high quality animal source foods is a huge win. What about, is this diet prohibitively expensive? I mean, a lot of people will say, hey, it's too expensive to eat this way. What are your thoughts on that?
So the funny part is I told people my grocery bill went down, and I said, I'm not buying anything extra. And I've got 3 little kids, so we're always going a little extra. And right now it's extra crazy. But my personal diet went down because I was buying no extra sides. And if you want to find a deal, there's deals out there. Like, I haven't gone the route of buying a whole cow or half a cow. Like, I've had some friends, send me the link, and I go, it's a big commitment. It's a lot of meat. But there's no shortage of sales out there that I've found, whether it's through promo codes or a lot of these farms will, they'll, give you a discount if you buy a bunch, and they keep them out pretty regularly, especially if you become a regular customer. They like to, to keep you fed and, keep somebody paying them every few weeks.
What is the environment like in I guess you said you're in Boston, so you're in the city, I suppose. Is there sort of a trend toward, like in New York City, Eric Adams is pushing everybody to go on their plant-based centric life, or whatever he likes to call it. Are you seeing some of the things in Boston where they're like, hey, we need to all go plant-based? Is that narrative being driven over there at all?
A little bit, yeah. So we have a new mayor as of last year, and she's fine. She's got a lot of those sort of ideologies too. And truth be told, like, I do what makes you happy. If you think vegetarian diet's good, go nuts. My kind of thought on it is while that exists, what I've noticed, because I'm the oldest of 6 brothers and sisters. They're all younger than me, and they're all in Ohio. They're all starting to kind of figure out, hey, this meat thing, this is pretty good. So I sort of have some hope, because I'm seeing a lot more kids, probably call it 16 to 25, who have realized that fitness and, health is more than just, an activist type thing. They're actually lifting weights, and they realize, if I lift weights, I need to fill my tissue with new tissue. And the best way to do that is through meat. So we're seeing a little bit of it, but we live in a nice school district that hasn't pushed anything like that. I mean, they're still offering chicken nuggets and things like that, but I go, hey, take the victories that they're at least offering something.
Yeah, well, I mean, school lunches have never been particularly. You're not going to get ribeye steaks to a bunch of kids at school, so it always tends to be cafeteria food is always kind of cheaper, lower quality stuff. They often respond to the lowest bidder in many cases, and whether it's fake meat or real low pizza or something like that. That's you got to feed the kids at home, teach them how to do that. And how old were your kids? Were pretty young, didn't you say? How old were they again?
Yeah, so I've got an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 18-month-old.
Okay, so young ones, yeah. So are they interested in learning about food? Are you guys talking to them about nutrition at all, or a little bit?
Yeah, so my 8-year-old, she's in that age where she wants to be just like her mom. Dad's what she called me, dad's cringe. So she's sort of off of. She'll eat chicken nuggets and things like that, but she kind of her self-proclaimed vegetarian at the moment for now. But we still sneak in plenty of meat. My youngest two, my 18-month-old, while I was making bacon, was screaming at my wife, and she's like, "What? You have everything? What do you need?" And she pointed at me, and she goes, "Oh, she wants bacon." So they're kind of doing it on their own.
It's interesting, the kids intuitively, as they're very young, sort of just gravitate towards what is probably good nutrition. Then they sort of get instructed, then they get influenced on what we're supposed to be eating, which is kind of funny, and it's just trying to get them to just listen to their instincts rather than their, the ideologies putting out there. Were there any negatives to this? Did you find any problems, like any, cramping or sleep problems, or any kind of negatives occur when you were doing this?
I'll tell you what, when I went into keto for the first time, I was a little concerned because I'd never tasted that copper, that metallic thing before. But no, it was, like I said, I expected all that stuff. It opened up a world of learning about hydration and things differently that I previously hadn't. Especially, again, going back to I keep talking about that training, but that was the most intense thing I've done since ever, probably. Like that was nuts. And to not cramp, to not lose energy, was pretty stark. It was pretty striking. And 2 weeks up until the fight, I went, super, super strict, no cheat days, no cheat meals, no alcohol, nothing, just meat and water and eggs. And that was how I dropped probably the last 8 pounds. And again, training 5 days a week, sparring, felt great.
Did you have to hit a weight for the fight? Was there a weight class you had to hit?
Yeah, I had to be within 10 pounds of him. So I came in at 228. I'm not sure. She said 225 was the number. So I was in 228, which I guess was within the 10.
Yeah. And are you still doing any kind of training? Are you still doing any boxing, messing around? Are you doing other kind of training these days?
I got back into rugby, actually, this past spring.
How old are you now?
Old boys now, 37.
30. Okay, you're not that old then. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so they asked me, they go, the A side could use some help. I went, I'll see about that.
Yeah, I think I played until I was 30, and then I was just, I was like, okay, that's enough for me, and I want to know other things. But it's good stuff. It's a fun thing. What about electrolytes? Salting electrolyte, was that an issue for you? Did you have to add electrolytes at any point?
So this was something that, if I thought carnivore was odd, I knew that this was snake oil, and that was salting your water and LMNT and stuff. And I said, there's no way that that's real. And I tried it. And after the first couple, I'm like, meh, maybe, maybe not. Now I can tell the difference if I've had water with a packet or I've just had water. And when I just have water, I'm still like really, really thirsty. Mm-hmm. And so at the game this weekend, at the match this weekend, one of the guys grabbed my water and they went back and they went, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, my bad. There's salt in there." He goes, "Why do you have salt in your water?" I was like, I tell you, like, I don't run out of gas. I actually noticed that I used to sweat like a pig when I was working out. I sweat a lot less, during games and things like that. Like, I can tell the difference when I've not had meat for a day or two. And I can tell the difference when I don't have salt in my water.
Yeah, when it comes to hydration, as weird as it sounds, pure water can only hydrate you to a degree until you start to dilute your salts, and then you just pee it back off. And so if you want to actually hang on to that water volume, you need some level of electrolyte in there. That's kind of how we work with that stuff. Are you, like I said, you do 95%. Are there any foods that you've tried to reintroduce that you found were clearly still problematic for you?
Grain. Yeah, grains. I can tell. I'm very conscious now. Again, diving down the rabbit hole of any seed oils. So I stay away from Wonder Bread or anything like that. But every now and then I'll have like a craving for a piece of toast or something. So I'll grab, an Ezekiel bread or something that is mattress, whatever. And it tastes good, right? But I could tell a couple hours later that my stomach isn't the biggest fan. I didn't have much problem with fruit, other than I noticed that I kind of started to do this again with my energy. I started to kind of, spike and crash, but it doesn't affect my stomach really. But yeah, grains where like if I have a slice of pizza on a whatever, I know it.
Yeah. And how often are you eating? Are you 2 meals a day? Is that, I don't know. That's what many people end up doing. Yeah. Two meals.
Yeah, 2 meals are like yesterday I was rushing out the door. So I grabbed hard-boiled egg, beef stick out the door, and then I ate again at 6. So, call it a meal. I said meal and a half. But when I got home, I probably put all 3,000 calories away.
Yeah. And you said it was a white collar fight thing. What do you do for a living, just out of curiosity, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I'm in payment processing. So I own a payment processing company. We do specifically for restaurants and hospitality. So I get to find all the good steak shops. But we do POS systems, processing. We've been doing that since 2008.
And you have people that I assume work for you, or any of those people inspired to try doing a meat-based diet?
I've had guys definitely introduce steak into theirs. One of the partners in there, he said he wanted to do he said, I want to get back on track. I'm going to go on my broccoli and chicken diet. I said, that sounds terrible. He goes, yeah, but I do it for a month. I drop a bunch of weight and then I'm good. I said, go nuts. I said, but that sounds awful. I said, why don't you try this again? 2 weeks, give it 2 weeks. And now I think his total was 30 pounds. He wasn't like a, hugely obese guy or anything like that. He was just kind of like me. I say that dad that, was doing everything they thought he needed to do to kind of maintain, but just saw it slipping away and couldn't quite figure out how to grab it.
Yeah, well, 35 pounds is still a significant amount. That'll have an impact on you for sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to see what has become normal now is, a middle-aged guy with an extra 30, 40 pounds around his waist is kind of like, that's kind of normal. That's the quote unquote dad bod, which is, it's unfortunate that that's become almost accepted, which is, it's that all that stuff leads to, cancer risk, heart disease risk, dementia risk, diabetes risk, all those things are tied into that. And we just kind of accept that as normal. Your ability to work out now, have you gotten stronger despite eating no carbs?
So it's funny. So I've got 2 brothers that are really into fitness and they've really bulked up, the last couple of years. They're, and we talked about supplements and things like that. And they asked, what I take. I said, I take steak. I said, I eat steak. I did do Mark Bell's organ blend thing there just to kind of mix it up. I mix that with my ice cream, so it gives a little flavor. But the funny part is I've gotten tremendously stronger, but I'm leaner. So I haven't bulked out. Like when I was lifting in my 20s, I'd get big shoulders. I would get, I'd kind of get, the barrel chest. I said, oh, maybe that's just my body type. Now I still lift at least 5-6 days a week. I don't do near the cardio that I was doing. And I don't lose any gas on the rugby pitch. I've leaned out tremendously while continuing to get stronger, which was kind of a big shock for me. I didn't expect. I thought I was either going to be big or I was going to be, skinny, and there was no, sort of in between. But yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, with the rugby, there's been a number of very high-level professional rugby athletes who have adopted carnivore now. A couple of the New Zealand All Blacks and other players from around the world have done this now, and they've done well. How do you find that? And are any of the people on the rugby team, do they know about your diet too and think it's crazy? Or
so they nicknamed me Thor because they said I'm a Viking because all I do is eat meat. And so every now and then I'll show up with something kind of fun like a beef heart or something. I'm like, hey, you're. But yeah, a couple of the guys who, again, just good dudes that are active, trying to be active, and have asked me about it and said they started researching it. And, you know, if they haven't gone full carnivore, I think they've at least begun to add some meat, you know, back into the diet, where previously, you know, it's going to give you a heart attack, so cut it all out. They've sort of maybe seen that for what it is. But yeah, a couple guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of literature coming out saying that maybe saturated fat is not the problem. And it's interesting, you know, you look, there's a study just came out not long ago and showed that the majority of the saturated fat in the American diet is actually coming from processed foods, desserts. You know, meat is actually a small percentage of our of our saturated fat. And so, is it the fact that it's just a marker for more of a processed diet, or is it actually meat? I don't know. It's kind of a interesting sort of relationship there. So social media. So tell me the names of your social media again. So
my Instagram is at the Big How. The Big How.
HOW. How.
HOW.
Okay.
And Twitter, Twitter's mostly for lobbing bombs at vegans, but yeah, it's it's at the Big How 78.
The Big How. Where did How comes from? What? Just
last name's Howard.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's
okay. The Big How.
So that makes sense. Okay.
The Thor nickname is probably better, so I should probably start seeing what's available there.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share that we didn't get to cover?
No, I think I want to thank you. You and I actually had a talk.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember when you were doing the fight.
Okay,
I remember because I remember I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah. I think I reposted one of your fights or something like that or something.
You did, yeah. You were very, very helpful. I genuinely appreciate that. It was very cool, and it's funny every time anybody's thinking about it, I say, just go check out this site. Just go check out, you know, this handle. Go read some information on it. I said, and find out for yourself. I can tell you that this is going to be how I eat for the rest of my life. It's put me through things that I didn't think I could get through normally, like the training. It's put me back into things that I thought were behind me, like rugby. And it's made me a better version of what I was and what I wanted to be. So no, I appreciate, you know, you and the Revero crew very, very much, and, you know, look forward to seeing, you know, what's next.
Well, I'm glad, and that's good. That's what it's about, you know, and you find something that keeps you in the game and life, because, you know, we get one, and, you know, it's no fun when you're on the sidelines all the time or just kind of waiting to die, as a lot of people, unfortunately, it seems are. Anyway, well, thank you. The rest of you guys, thanks everybody. We'll be back once again tomorrow with yet another success story. So thanks so much, and keep the word, you know, keep promoting this stuff, because it's important for other people to find out. Thanks for doing that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Take care. See you later.